Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Bala. I'm the mental health lead for the district. Really excited to be here with you this evening to talk about mental health and wellness. This is an exciting time, no doubt, and maybe filled with lots of different emotions as your child starts grade 9. And hopefully maybe we have some young people here on the call as well. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what are some of the supports and services that we have when it comes to supporting student well-being within our district. But before I get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what is mental health? What does that even mean when we talk about mental health? Because often I think we use mental health and mental illness interchangeably. And in fact, when we're talking about mental health, it really is a positive state of well-being and flourishing. I think that mental health, though, isn't just about being happy or thinking positive thoughts. It really is about finding a place of belonging and connection and purpose and optimism, a sense of optimism. All of those things are critical for us to flourish and thrive. And certainly it's something, of course, that we all want for our children. When we talk about mental health problems, there's lots of language I think that we use here. We use mental health problems or mental health challenges, mental illness. What are the things that we're kind of looking for when we start to get concerned? And so that's really when it starts to interfere in our own or our child's day-to-day functioning. So when it lasts a long time, when it is really the intensity of what we're seeing is of concern, and again, when it's it's unexpected, I think, in terms of their response and their experience to the world around them. And so some of, I should say, the most common mental health challenges, certainly we know, are anxiety and depression. And we have seen increases in these rates in young people and in adults alike, actually, over the last number of years. One way I like to really talk about mental health and what this looks like and how we better understand it is using the dual continuum model. And the reason that's so critical, I think, is because people often think about, well, either you have a mental illness or you don't have a mental illness. But in fact, the reality is you could have a mental illness, so you could have a diagnosed anxiety disorder and have really positive mental health. So perhaps you have a community of support around you, perhaps you have people you talk to, perhaps you go to counseling services, and you've found strategies that really work for you, that really support your positive mental health. At the same time, you could also not have a diagnosed mental illness and really struggle with poor mental health. So mental health impacts how we think, how we act, how we respond, how we see the world around us. So it is really critical to be aware of what are those things that we need to do to take care of ourselves, and again, to have that community of support around us to better our mental health and well-being. So why is this so critical in schools? Why do we need to talk about this? Well, we know that absolutely learning, achievement, well-being are interconnected, right? We can't separate those two things. And schools are such a great place to promote mental health, to have conversations about mental health, to decrease stigma around these conversations about mental health, and also to kind of practice what are those strategies that we can learn that will support our well-being. The other thing that is critical and why we feel this is so important to be talking about in schools is because we know educators can be really important people to notice when there have been changes with students, where behavior has changed, where they're just noticing something in the classroom. And so if they can be kind of attuned and aware of what those things are to look for, then they can work in partnership with parents and communities, again, and students themselves to support around their well-being and help to find those pathways to care and support. So as a district, when we talk about supporting student mental health, we talk about this model. It's called the AIM model. And this is actually a model that's used across the province and every school board. And so really what that is, and we talk about this at professional development days all the time as well. So certainly educators are aware of this model as well. So at the bottom is what we call tier 1. So that work is, you know what, this is good for all kids. This is about creating spaces of belonging and connection where students feel seen and heard and understood, where we partner with them and give them voice in their learning. And so that is kind of 80% of the work that we need to do to support student well-being is that work, and it's critical for all students. Then in the middle would be our tier 2. So that is 10 to 15% of students need this. So just a little bit more. So you know what, a little bit more skill building when it comes to maybe it's healthy relationships or social skills or just something is a little bit more challenging. And so some students need a little bit more support with that. And so that's where we could do groups or other interventions to support. And then at the top tier is, again, that tier 3. So that's kind of 3 to 5% where we know, you know what, students that are really struggling with their mental health, where they may need to seek support from our mental health professionals, and they may need assistance with those bridges to community as well. So that's kind of how we define our work here as a district. But here's what we know, and this is what's so critical, that really the strongest common denominator when it comes to supporting well-being for students, for all humans, is relationships. So really it is about ensuring that there are connections with adults where students feel seen and heard and valued and celebrated, where they feel that adults are approaching them with humility and compassion and are responsive to their needs. So this kind of is, again, the foundation of all the work that we need to do. So as mentioned, certainly sometimes more is needed. And so we're really fortunate in the district to have some really fabulous mental health staff. We do have psychology staff, social work staff. We also have itinerant educational assistants that work within our schools. So typically what you could expect is psychology and social work staff work within our schools, and they are there typically, I would say, 1 day a week in each high school. Our itinerant educational assistants typically would be in their high schools 2 days a week. And the itinerant educational assistants do kind of some of that upstream, that earlier work, that tier 1 and tier 2 that I was talking about. We know we have seen an increased need of mental health services, absolutely, within our community. And so certainly having these supports and services we recognize is critical. What does that work look like? So what our staff do is they provide some assessment, but mostly I would say they spend their time consulting. So consulting with educators to say, how best can you support the students in your classroom? You know, they may look at kind of what are some of the needs of individuals, and then kind of do some advocacy and some work with educators to best support them. They do a lot of crisis intervention. All of our staff are trained in suicide risk assessments and brief counseling using evidence-informed practices. And again, that bridging to community is critical. They do counseling, for sure, brief counseling, and again, linking to community supports. We cannot do this work alone, and so I will share with you in a little bit about how many community partners we have, and we're very fortunate to have those for sure. We also have been really fortunate the last number of years to hire identity-specific support. So we recognize that for some students, really speaking to someone that has shared lived experience, come from common communities, is really critical to their mental health and well-being. And so we have hired staff, and we do have folks that are supporting students from the African, Caribbean, and Black students population, Indigenous student population, 2S LGBTQ+ student population. And then we also have a social worker that supports students who are deaf and hard of hearing. So really these, we know, are also critical supports, as well as working with community partners for those identities we don't have represented within our mental health staff. So one of the biggest pieces is, how do they access support? So, and I'm hoping there are students on this call. If they're not, and parents and caregivers, please do share with your children. This is one of the biggest challenges we have, is we want to make sure that students know where to turn. We know that 50% of students right now are telling us they're not sure where to go when they're struggling with their mental health. So this is critical information, and I think we need to partner together in order to ensure that students have the information that they need. Guidance counselors are a beautiful pathway in to supports and services. So certainly going down and seeing your guidance counselor, sharing with them if you're struggling. Administrators or any caring adult, in all honesty, in your high school, anybody that they feel connected to, any safe caring adult can help to find those pathways into our staff. The other thing that's important to know, however, that as of 16, students can sign their consents themselves, so they actually don't need parental permission to be seeing our mental health staff. They can self-refer. Certainly, we know that it is wonderful when we can all work collaboratively, however, and we do encourage that when appropriate. I just wanted to highlight a couple pieces of work that is being done. So as I mentioned before, our itinerant educational assistants are in our schools 2 days a week, and they do some really wonderful work. They deliver a program called Wellness Matters, and they go to every grade 9 classroom. And that program really is focused on talking about mental health, kind of breaking down the stigma around mental health. They talk about coping strategies. They talk about kind of where are those community resources, again, to build that kind of knowledge within students and really ensure that they know what those pathways are. The other thing that your children will also have is in grade 10, the ministry has created some modules on mental health and well-being. So in their careers classroom, which every grade 10 student will have, also talks about coping with stress, how to help a friend, how to seek support yourself, etc. So really important topics for our children to be having. I mentioned previously around community partnerships. So again, this is not an exhaustive list of all the partners that we work with, but certainly some of the agencies. And we're, again, really fortunate to have such strength in this community, to have so many partners working together to wrap around students and children. So I think one of the critical pieces, none of us can do this work alone, right? We all play an important role in supporting the mental health and well-being of children and youth. And so really, we really encourage you to check in with your child, have those open conversations. I think as a parent myself, we want to quickly fix things when our children are struggling, but sometimes they just really need us to listen and to hear how they're feeling. Please do let us know if you have concerns about your child's well-being, because we really want to work with you. We know you know your child best. And so that collaboration and partnership is really critical in ensuring that students are getting the care and the support that they need. Here are just a few of the community resources available to support as well. And so there are free counseling services here. Counseling Connect, One Stop Talk are things that you could go online and students could get counseling support this way as well for free. You can find all of these resources on our website. If you go to OCDSB Mental Health Resources, there's a list there. The other thing is we also have some websites. We have OCDSB Mental Health Parents, Caregivers in Action that has some of our previous speaker series and some messages and support resources for parents. And we also have the same, if there's any young people on this call, there is OCDSB Mental Health for youth, for students. And so I work with a fabulous group of young people, the Youth Action Committee on Mental Health. And so they work very hard. They have an Instagram page and really are trying to kind of create some conversations from youth to youth about how do we take care of our mental health and well-being, and what are those critical supports as required. So that is the end of my presentation, but certainly please, if you have any questions, if there's anything that I haven't answered, please do put your question in the chat and I'd be more than happy to answer for you. I really do hope it's a wonderful transition to high school and that the rest of the year goes really well. Thanks so much for being here this evening. Take care.